Hey Brandon, how's it going, man? It's me, Zach, and we're back here with another video. This video specifically is going to be going over Gardevoir and Sylveon GX. This is a very pesky deck that I'm sure you've run into on the PTCGO ladder or versus, or maybe even in a tournament. This deck is super strong, and we're going to be going over Stephane Ivanoff's list, one of the best players in the game. He just recently made top 8 at the Cologne Regional Championships with this exact deck. So I will tell you exactly what you can do with your deck against this deck to give yourself the best chance of winning. So let's jump into this deck profile. We'll be going over each and every individual card in this list so you can know exactly what this deck does, what it's all about. So let's start it off with Gardevoir Sylveon GX. This is the main attacker of their deck. Worth 3 prize cards. They use Fairy Song to power up Fairy energies in play very quickly to one of their bench Pokemon. They can use Kaleidostorm to do some damage and move those energies around. But the big reason why they play this card is because of Magical Miracle GX. It hits for 200 damage, and if they have 6 Fairy energies attached to it total, then they can shuffle your hand to 0 cards. So it's a great way for them to ruin whatever you have planned in your hands. So if you're not quick enough in what you can do with your strategy, this deck certainly can jump out there and bite you. So they use this with a combination of ways to move energies around, disrupt your hands, and heal in order to have enough turns to be able to power up for Magical Miracle GX. They also have Fairy Charms in this deck that they can attach to only Fairy Pokemon, which all their Pokemon in their deck are Fairy type, to stop your Pokemon from attacking. Moving on to the only other Pokemon that they play in this deck, they have Xerneas GX. So you might be wondering, why do they play Xerneas GX? It's not that great. Well, if you move a bunch of damage counters around to all their Pokemon and they retreat or switch, they can use Sanctuary GX to move all that damage back onto your Pokemon. So pretty cool concept there. Additionally, this Pokemon's only worth 2 prize cards. So if you knock this Pokemon out at any point in the game, you still need to knock out 2 Gardevoir Sylveon GXs to win the game. So if you knock out that, you have 4 prize cards remaining. You knock out that, you have 1 prize card remaining. You knock out another one, and that's how they force you to knock out 3 Pokemon instead of just 2 Gardevoir Sylveon GX. Moving on to their Trainer Supporter Stadium items tool cards, we have Cherish Ball. So this is going to be able to search out GX Pokemon only for them. And they only play GX Pokemon, so they play 2 copies of Cherish, or 4 copies of Cherish Ball. That could search out any of their Pokemon at all, so can search out any card in their deck. Costume Catchers, for the same reason that you play them, they want to be able to bring up the Pokemon that they want by playing 2 copies at once to knock them out. Now, in this matchup, they're probably going to be focusing on knocking out your Tapu Koko Prism Star and your Zapdos, because those are your 2 big attackers in that matchup. If they ever need to, they are going to draw some cards with it. So keep that in mind. Energy Spinner. So this is basically one of the only ways that this deck can search for an energy at all during any part of the game. So, and if they went second, similar to Volcanion, they could search for more energies. Now, they don't have to search for all 3, but this is a way for their Green's Exploration to search out energies, similar to how your Volcaner can search out cards as well. Next up on this list, they have Great Potion. So if you are able to do some damage to their Pokemon, they will try to heal with Great Potion in a pinch. So you want to basically be focusing on getting one-shots out there or going full blitz into a one-shot because they can heal with this deck. Pokegear 3.0 is a great item card for them. It could search out any of their supporter cards if they're in the top 7 cards of their deck. The main ones that they play are Green's Exploration, which they can play since they have 0 Pokemon with abilities in play. And they have Coach Trainer, which if they have a tag team in their active Pokemon, which they will almost always have a Gardevoir Sylveon GX in the active position, Coach Trainer will be able to search or draw them 4 cards. The other ones that they can grab, this deck plays a handful of others. It has Bill's Analysis, which is almost like an extra Greens. Cynthia, if they just want to do a shuffle draw. And Erica's, which can draw a card for each one of your opponent's Pokemon in play. So some cool options there. This deck is very heavy on the reset stamps. It plays 3 of them. So their goal is to basically reset stamp you, reset stamp you, reset stamp you all the time to leave you with very few cards remaining in your hands. It can be very annoying, so you want to pick and choose when you're getting your knockouts. Focus on knocking out 2 Gardevoir Sylveon GX in this matchup. That's going to give you the best chance to get around reset stamp. Next up here, they have switch, so they could switch in between their copies. Let's say you damaged one, they might not want you to damage the other one, so they're going to switch in between. Maybe they started with a Xerneas GX, and they want to go for a Coach Trainer to draw some extra cards. Switch is one of the absolutely most basic cards in the game. So, and it's the same switch that you play in your deck, so I'm sure you know what that one does. Speaking about another card that they play in your deck, or that you play in your deck, that they play in this deck, Tag Switch. So they can use Fairy Song, attach the energies to the bench, and Tag Switch. So if they have upwards of 6 energies in play, they can always Tag Switch their energies around to use Magical Miracle GX whenever they want to. So make sure that you're always prepared with a Jirachi and a Skateboard in this matchup so that you can, after they knock out your Pokemon with Magical Miracle GX, or if they use a reset stamp, you could send up a Jirachi against them. So you can use Stellar Witch to try to get a started again. Power Plant. So this is going to shut off your Dedenne GX. It's going to shut off your Zeraora's Thunderclap Zone. You can bump this with your Thunder Mountain Prism Star, or you could bump this with, what's it called? Lysander Labs. Like I said, this can shut off some of the abilities you have in your deck. So do keep that in mind. Double check before you use Dedenne in this matchup. Double check before you try to retreat with Zeraora. Wondrous Lab, speaking about annoying cards to play against, since all their Pokemon are Fairy type, it doesn't necessarily hurt them at all if they have a Wondrous Lab in play, but all of your Pokemon are going to cost 1 more Fairy, or 1 more energy to attack, since you are not Fairy type. So make sure if your opponent has one of these in play, that you are able to bump it with a Stadium, or have an extra energy available to attach. You don't want to go into an attack and realize you attached to the wrong Pokemon and you can't attack. So make sure you're paying attention for all the stadiums that they have in play, because those can really hurt you. Moving on to the supporters, like we already briefly discussed, Bill's analysis, they're going to peep at the top 7 cards of their deck, grab up to 2 trainer cards, any of their trainer cards, anything that's not Pokemon or energy in this deck. Ooh, and we got a trade there on my behalf. Exciting for me. They're going to search for 2 trainer cards and put them back into their hands. Green's Exploration is a better card for them to play in this matchup, but they use this as their 5th Green's Exploration, since you can only play a 4 of any card except for basic energy. So that's what they have going on with Bill's analysis. They can grab out some very pesky cards. Coach Trainer is pretty much the most basic card you could think of when it comes to a supporter. They could draw 2 cards, and if they have a tag team, they draw 4 cards total. So they're just going to use this to get their hand up to a big size. If their hand gets really big, remember, you could always use Reset Stamp against them and shuffle all the cards that they've been holding on to their hand back into their deck. Next up, they got Cynthia. Again, very similar card to what most other decks would be playing. Cynthia's a great way to just shuffle and draw some 6 cards. So maybe they have a low hand, or maybe they're trying to not deck out, or maybe they're searching for other cards. Cynthia is a card that's played in a lot of decks. So, yep. Moving on to Erica's. They can only play this if they have 4 or fewer cards in hands. And if they do, they draw a card for each of your opponent's Pokemon in play. If you think they're about to play an Erica's, feel free to bench less Pokemon than you normally would, because them drawing more cards is good for them. Don't bench yourself out, or make sure that you don't put yourself in a bad position, but you can play around Erica's a little bit like that. Green's Exploration, as I said before, it's probably the main supporter card that they have in their deck. So they can only play this if they have no Pokemon with abilities in play. They only play 2 different types of Pokemon, 4 Gardevoir Sylveon, 1 Xerneas GX. They both don't have abilities, so they definitely meet that requirement. They could search their deck for any 2 trainer cards at all whenever they want to. So it's definitely one of those things when they can, if they want to get a reset stamp, they can. If they want to get a power plant, they can. Tag switch, whatever they want, they can get out, as long as it's not a Pokemon or an energy. And between Cherish Ball and Energy Spinner, they can use Green's Exploration, similar to your Vulcaner, to search out basically any card that they want from their deck, including supporters and stadiums. So this is where the deck gets extremely tricky for you. They play 2 copies of Fairy Charm Lightning type. So it prevents all damage done to Fairy type Pokemon this card's attached to. So against your deck, they basically want to attach as many Fairy Charm Lightnings as they can, up to 2, since that's all this deck plays. And then your Pikarom, your Zorora GX, your Alolan Raichu GX, and your Dedenne GX are doing no damage. The only things that go through are special conditions, which you could find on Tandem Shock on Raichu and Alolan Raichu GX, but paralyzing them doesn't do much because they're just going to switch out of it. And then they also have, Tingly Return. That's not going to do much. The only Pokemon that you could attack with are Zapdos or your Tapu Koko Prism Star if they have a Fairy Charm Lightning attached. Now, don't get too afraid, don't get too upset, don't get frustrated at all. You do have other ways around this card, and that is by you playing your copy of Lysander Labs. As you can see, this is a Pokemon Tool card. So, Lysander Labs shuts off Pokemon Tool cards from working, so you can wait for the turn that you can get a big knockout on a Gardevoir Sylveon. You can use Lysander Labs and shut off Fairy Charm Lightning, so your Zorora, Pikarom, Raichu GX, and Dedenne GX can freely attack their Gardevoir Sylveons. You mainly want to be using Tag Bolt GX in this position, or using Lightning Ride GX. Since this doesn't really matter for your deck, it's the same thing as a Lightning Charm, except it's used against Psychic GX Pokemon, and UB is for Ultra Beast GX Pokemon. They play this card to get around Mewtwo Mew GX, and they play this card to get around Blacephalon GX and Naganadel GX. Those are basically the 2 big reasons why they play those cards. Now, the counts, depending on whatever metagame or decks they expect, they might play 3 Fairy Charm Lightnings, or 2 Fairy Charm Psychics, or 2 Fairy Charm UB. No matter what it is, that's what their options are, but those 2 Fairy Charms don't affect you. And then they have 9 Fairy Energies in the deck. So their deck is, the way that they play it, they use Fairy Song to power up their Pokemon really quickly, they attack with Kaleidostorm, and they use pesky cards such as Great Potion to heal, Reset Stamp to shuffle your hand away, Tag Switch to move their energies around. They have Power Plant to stop your abilities from working on your GX Pokemon, your Dedenne GX and your Zorora GX. They have Wondrous Lab to make your attacks cost a little bit extra, and they have Fairy Charm Lightning to block the attacks from your GX Lightning type Pokemon. Once they have enough energies in play, or they've held off the game long enough, they have Magical Miracle GX to shuffle your hand to 0 and hit you for 200 damage. You can't really do too much if your opponent gives you a 0 card hand. You might end up passing, so that's exactly how this deck works. When you're playing against this deck, you want to focus on knocking out 2 Gardevoir Sylveon GX, either naturally by them having it in the active position, or using Custom Catcher to bring it up. And you want to be using Lysander Labs to get around their copy of Fairy Charm Lightning. So that's really what they could be doing in this matchup. Overall, those are the options that they have. And you just basically want to power up your Pokemon, make sure you're not giving up too many prize cards in the process, and wait for the turn where you can get a knockout on a Gardevoir Sylveon by getting past their Fairy Charm Lightning. Maybe they'll struggle at the beginning to find out their Fairy Charm Lightning, so feel free to attack into any Gardevoir Sylveon GX that does not have a Lightning Fairy Charm attached to it. That's completely fine. And your goal is just to try to outspeed them and use your Lysander Labs. So it looks like a complex matchup, but it's really not. It comes down to, can you get past their Fairy Charm Lightning and all the other disruption methods that they have, or can you not? So in the next video, we're going to be going over exactly what this matchup looks like for Stephane Ivanoff's deck. Be sure to pause this video, look over the deck. If you didn't catch all the cards that they play and all the counts, this is probably going to be the version of the deck that people are going to be playing a lot of heading forward, because Stephane is a very popular player, very good. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, Brandon, and I hope you enjoy watching it, seeing exactly what your Pikarom deck does against the Gardevoir Sylveon deck. It's not the greatest matchup because the Fairy Charm Lightning shuts off your GX Pokemon from attacking, but what can you really do in that case? As always, any questions, feel free to ask during our next coaching session. or I'm sure Ryan would gladly help you out at all. So I'll let you go for this one. Thanks so much for watching, and then jump into the next video to watch exactly how it goes against your exact Pika ROM deck. All right, Brandon, have a good one. Bye.